Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by A Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty, Nummy, Jose, Adam, Arwin, and Alan. How are you all doing?
Hello. Eleanor's trying to take over.
She is.
We have had a little bit of an off-air argument about what Rumpus was doing, but I think we're finished with that now.
Oh, tell me more. I had you on mute just while I was setting up the show again.
Oh, it was just over his presentation with perspective and orthographic, and we're still kind of heated with that, to be fair. I think Arwin's more heated than anyone.
What Ruhif actually said, he presented an orthographic view, and his opening words were, "This is perspective." That wasn't perspective, what was on screen. Now, he got battered.
Corrected himself.
No, he didn't correct himself.
Yeah, he did. He did.
He reasserted.
I actually heard him say it. Like this.
No, you heard something different.
It was a perspective view. He was showing a model,
yeah, but it wasn't,
that demonstrated how perspective
was an slight of hand. He had the numbers up for the angular size change, Arwin. He just had the numbers up, and then he told you that it made perspective work when he showed an orthographic view. It's just sleight of hand. It's a magic trick. They show you one thing and tell you another.
And the funny thing is, in the chat, you've got the Rumpus telling everybody how we're all morons and we don't understand it. Yet these are the people that are telling you this is what it's supposed to be. And everybody understands that perspective is things get smaller as they get away from you. Things head up to the horizon from the ground and down to the horizon from the sky. It isn't a point of debate. What is
can I just say, Anthony?
Represented. Yeah, go on.
I think it was on the Flat Earth Debate 177 when I did that little presentation. I kind of figured out that the angular size change after about 24, 25 miles or so would make it so that those wind turbines would disappear.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as they would do as if it was going over the curvature of the Earth, right? So on a flat and level plane, I mapped out a proper view of what it looks like looking down perspectively at the wind turbines and then incrementally getting smaller. I then changed it into an orthographic view and showed that when I was looking at those same turbines, when it got to about 25 miles, you shouldn't really see them because perspective would make it so that they were so small, they would be, you wouldn't be able to see them. And that's exactly what we were trying to say, is that they've co-opted the curvature calcs as perspective.
I think, yeah, the diagram that Ruif put up was correct if you are trying to calculate the angle between the person's eye and the mountains if viewed from that side view, and they're the angles he was trying to put in. The trouble is that diagram should be trying to represent how those angles are altered by the perspective view of the viewer on the first mountain, and that's what his model should be demonstrating. That it isn't. It is still only generating the angles from that perspective, and it needs the angular size resolution applying to the mountains for him to then put those mountains onto that diagram. That's for me the correct route of the maths, and that's the trouble. It's maths is all their maths is correct, but unfortunately the maths they've got doesn't represent the reality and the viewer. It represents the orthographic view, and that's where they generate angles.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
No, I actually thought that the diagram, especially of the mountains, was deceptive the way it was represented, because the ratio of the distance and the height were not the same. So it was not to scale at all. But even in his calculation, the angular size difference was less than 1/5%, which is almost negligible, especially when there is air interference, all that stuff. So it was basically the same.
Yeah.
And that is what it didn't look like that in his model representation, but his actual calculations did show that. So it worked perfectly on his flat model.
The maths is correct for the angle between the eyes and the mountains if viewed from somebody looking at it from the side. The angle is correct. The maths is correct. Unfortunately, the maths does not apply to the observation of what you're trying to measure.
Exactly.
Can you share my screen a sec, Nath? Because this is on the Flat Earth Debate 177. And this is the orthographic view that I was trying to show how it works with perspective. And as you can see, these turbines are not all the same height. This turbine to start with should be where my cursor is now. If we were doing it like he was doing, can you tell that all the wind turbines are the same height? They're 10 meters tall. Well, this isn't how you would apply it on a perspective view, because perspectively, it's getting smaller and smaller as it goes further away. So as he's looking from his left to his right, what he should have done is put the 10 meters in, but reduced the height of the post that he was putting in.
Correct.
And then on the next one, reduce that height of the post, not have them all the same height.
Correct.
Because,
well said, Randy.
Yeah, because this is me looking prospectively down these wind turbines, and they're further away. So they look smaller to me. So this is eventually what would happen is that these lines do actually converge at some point, and I think it was about 23 miles or some distance away that they actually converge. So this is how he should have done it. This is how you would do an orthographic view on a perspective, about perspective. So yeah, it's all there. Flat Earth Debate 177.
I think the point to make is that orthographic is where you don't change the size of the objects and you represent them to scale as amongst themselves. However, perspective is from the eyes of the person, the way they see it. Everything gets smaller as it gets further away. Dr. Zach understands this. We all get it. Who's the other one that was? It was Taboo Conspiracy. He gets it. I'm sure Jaren gets it at Globebusters. I'm sure most people get it.
Oh, can I just do a shout out to that regard? Sorry, Anthony, to interrupt. But yeah, Jaren does get it because he was analysing Jesse Kozowski's footage of a theodolite on the opposite side of a body of water. The guy's at 300 odd feet. And he's saying that the direct line between the two theodolites has dropped because of the curve of the Earth. And what Jaren did in a very amusing way was, as Jesse's speaking on his edit of Jesse's video, he says, "This is caused by," Jaren interrupts and says, "perspective."
Yeah.
So yes, Jaren absolutely implicitly understands this.
My point was
pretty much everyone gets it. The problem is that the models to the curve calculators are deceptive because they don't actually tell you directly that it does not apply perspective, and everybody kind of assumes that it should, and it just leaves it out secretly. That is the problem, because I don't think anyone really doubts the angular size difference due to perspective. But it's just hidden that it's left out.
When I did the presentation beginning of yesterday's show, I disclaimed by saying that some people would not get this. Some people would get it and they would hide it, but other people just wouldn't understand it, and not everybody would. Wiggles came in and totally didn't get it until he put his maths on the screen, and then we asked, well, where's the indication for the reduction in size over distance perspective? And the minute we asked that, he took it off screen and wouldn't put it back on again, and that's why he got roasted. But it was only when it was pointed out to him did he realize. Prior to that, he thought his maths was bob on. Everybody does.
He realized he had been a dumbass.
Yeah, but probably 80% of the people on the Ball Earth side are victims of this. They don't realize. But the other 20%, and I'm talking about the Rumpus, talking about Slice Arcane, they all know that the perspective is an issue and it has to be accounted for in the maths, but it isn't accounted for in the maths, and that's the reason why the hidden value is always consistent on their model. What they're actually doing is doing perspective and calling it hidden, and that matches up. That's because we match real world observations with what we see. But you've got to do the perspective first, and we'll call it perspective. Then you can apply your hidden, because then you're going to double the effects of perspective, and it's going to work massively against you with regards to that hidden value. So it's, again, I reassert my position, which was they are not accounting for perspective when they're doing the hidden value. And unfortunately, mistakes were made in Sean's Hangout because, as I showed, GeoStreamer didn't reduce the size. He used it orthographically, passed it off as being perspective, and Sean's actual words were, "And this, Anthony, is done based on perspective." Yet he was showing it orthographically. So Sean doesn't understand this. And if he does understand it, he's literally lying. I reckon GeoStreamer doesn't understand it. He's probably just doing it. But most people do understand this. But the ones that do understand it are hiding it. The ones that understand it probably can't deal with the maths, because the maths goes against their model. It kills them.
But take a note, if this isn't sunk in, you're privileged, because eventually the penny will drop and you'll realise that you're peering straight down the wizard's sleeve. You're seeing how it's all done.
I think I'm just going to do a little, in a minute, I'll do a demonstration and show you, because I'm just making it now.
Cool.
Well, while you're doing that, Ranty, I'll say check out number 177 again. I think it's about the 1 hour 15 mark. Ranty goes through it. I might even snip it out now that I know exactly what number it is and where it is. I'll snip it out and put it up as a separate video. But it was a really cracking demonstration where you basically show exactly that. They've co-opted angular size and called it curvature.
Yep. And if perspective was applied on a curvature, then even the tallest of objects, mountains, towers, doesn't really matter, because in relation to the bulge that would be in between, they would always fall behind it. So the actual curvature, the actual things, the rate at which things drop down behind it should be a lot quicker. And at a certain point, you would just not be able to see anything, no matter how big it is. There should be like an absolute cap point at which you would just no longer be able to see anything after that point, ever, under any conditions.
Oh yeah, Arwen, totally. Once you combine the reality of things getting smaller in the distance, i.e. perspective, i.e. angular size reduction, with the presuppositional value of a curved Earth, forget refraction, that ain't helping, you're joking. But what you end up with is nothing ever being seen ever.
So it would be
that is very misleading for people questioning what we see, how we interpret things, because then these guys that are very good at math and equations, they say this is it because this is how it works, and they present it in a way that yes, the math add up, but does it add up to the phenomena we're watching? I mean, it's being co-opted in the way of misleading, misleading.
It would be kind of interesting to figure out what would be a very good point after which, on a curve, it would simply be absolutely technically impossible to see anything. After what point that would be, due to a curvature obstruction and like the average height of objects.
You're on fire at the moment, Arwen. That's 2 for 2. I think, again, the same applies. Things will progress. Other people will start modelling out these sort of things. Where would you just lose everything on a sphere? I've just asserted that you'd never see anything ever, and that's not a vast over-exaggeration. But yeah, I think people will do exactly that, Arwen, and start figuring out. Once you factor in the fact that objects get smaller in the distance and you have a curved Earth, or you presuppose that you're on a curved Earth, what things should actually look like represents nothing like what you actually see.
Yes. And what I'd also appeal to fellow flat earthers that are protagonists in the flat earth movement. So I'm talking to the likes of Bob at Globebusters, Jaren, Dr. Zach. We all need to basically ram this point home, because if they're not accounting for perspective in the maths, basically, if we don't point it out to them, then every time they say it, everybody's going to take in what they say and consider it to be true. But if we call them out on it and say this is wrong, then basically if we all do it at once, this point is going to get squashed. And it'll prove that they can't basically show what they claim they're showing to be a sphere ever. All photos will prove flat Earth, all of them.
Yeah, in other words, even if you do beg the question and insert a presupposition that you're on a sphere to begin with, you still can't get the maths to work. Did you say something, Alan? I saw your lights dancing, but we didn't actually hear anything come out of your mouth.
Hello, boys.
That's better. Hello, Alan.
Do you understand perspective, Alan?
I do. I had a dream about Ranta the other night that involved perspective.
Did it involve things getting smaller as they go further away?
No, strangely enough, Anthony.
No?
He was on a raft made of turnips at Barrow. And he was rowing towards me, and he stayed the same size all the time.
Ah, so it was an orthographic dream.
Whoa, that is trippy, man.
So that was an orthographic dream, wasn't it, Alan?
Well, I wasn't viewing it from the side.
Well, you were in your dream.
No, it's a parallel view. So
He didn't get bigger as he came towards you, though, right?
No, Ranty was just on a raft made of turnips rowing away.
And he didn't get bigger as he came towards you.
Nope.
Orthographic.
This barrow must be giving you nightmares because it's showing so much flat. I mean, you're actually dreaming about it now. It's awesome.
Yes, it's rather worrying how you got in there.
I'm more worried that you're dreaming about Ranty at night time.
So, hey, Alan, that was
I'm
kind
sure
of
a lot
like
of them
the scene in Monty Python's Holy Grail when the knight comes storming towards the guards at the castle, constantly at the same distance, and then suddenly he's there.
No one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition, Alwyn.
Now that's a later scene. No, wait, that's not in the same movie, by the way.
Anyway, burn Tommy Robinson.
No way. Free him.
Yeah, let's not get into this. Who cares?
Yeah. What you're doing there, Ranty, is what I showed of Dr. Zach's picture a minute ago.
Oh, you can see what I'm doing?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, awesome.
I haven't presented
I didn't even
yet.
realise I was displaying.
And you're not. But when you're ready, just tell me and I'll pop you on for the audience.
Oh, right, okay.
Can I just say, Ranty, for a guy that's had a PC that's less than a week old, you've got more icons on your desktop than I've ever seen. You're a dirty boy.
Ew, evil, dirty desktop icons.
Desktop.
Making the screen look cluttered.
I just want to give an apology as well for Rio. Pele playing Earth Lovers Everywhere joined the group before and got removed. I did try and stop that from happening, but at the time he tried joining, it was middle of fights. And unfortunately, you just get kicked. If you've got a name that looks like you might be some kind of dodgy geezer, you'll get kicked because we have to consider that the trolls, unfortunately, Rio. So you'll have to join tomorrow, I'm afraid, mate. I did try.
Can I just point out that this show's a bit ass about face? So normally, the first show we will chat about, chit chat, find out what the weather's like, and then towards the end it might just start getting heated. Whereas in this show, we're shooting the breeze, it's all very calm, we've had a joke from Alan about a turnip raft, and this is the second show. The first show being very, very heated.
Yeah. I think it's worth pointing out, though, because they don't like coming in until the last minute. Now, thankfully, on this occasion, Rumpus has come in early in the show. And I don't know why he got kicked. I went making a brew. Once he started talking, I thought, oh, now's a good time to go and have a bath, let alone make a brew. But he ended up getting kicked, which is probably a good thing. He doesn't understand perspective. Or if he does understand perspective, he deliberately misrepresents it so that other ballers think that the way to show perspective on anything is to do it orthographically. And that's not perspective. So, Sean, you need to make a couple of concessions. You weren't showing perspective in your hangout, Sean. Oh, and just to address why I wasn't in the chat, it was because I was coming back from somewhere. So I knew that you were going live at some point, but unfortunately I have other things to do, life. So I wasn't listening to it live. I listened to it when I got in, after my Windows decided not to load, and then I had to reinstall Windows. So eventually I got round to it, and I was gobsmacked at what I was listening to and watching, because it just shows that either you guys are stupid or misrepresenting at worst, but probably don't really understand perspective. Ruhif and the Rumpus definitely do, though. Particularly the Rumpus. He understands all the maths. He knows what's going on. He just refuses to accept that what he's doing is wrong, and he pushes it anyway. It's really interesting as well, because they all mock and laugh at us, but by consensus, they ridicule us. But the reality is, what they're doing is wrong. We all can see it. Dr. Zach sees it. Taboo sees it. Bob at Globebuster sees it. Nathan sees it. Patricia will see it, I'm sure. Mark Sard, I'm sure he'd see it. How many people do we need to see to get this message around? That basically these ballers think that we're on our own and we're the only gays in the village. But actually, most of the main people in Flat Earth now, at some point, come across this, realize it's nonsense, and then either don't go back to it. But on this occasion, we're beating the drum. And I think all of us need to stand by it because it just shows the fakeness and the fraud in their maths. They're applying orthographic.
Hello.
Hey, Tim.
Applying perspective, not accounting for it, and they need to.
Hello.
Yo.
Good to have you.
Ranty.
Hello.
Do you want me to, if you're doing those at 1 meter distances, do you want me to give you the angle off of parallel to the top of each of the posts if they're 1 meter after? Do it like that.
On
the angle size calculator.
Well, I don't really want to get into it too much right now. Maybe you can talk about it afterwards. I just want to do
and do it with the mountains as well, and actually show what their diagram should have looked like if they were going to do it.
Am I displaying, Nathan?
No, I'm waiting. When you're ready, I'll display you.
Yeah, I'm sort of ready now.
Okay, I'll stick you up.
Ranty, I just have a quick question for you guys. Can you display my screen really quickly? I just wanted to clear something up.
Well, I wouldn't because there's a queue, but you've just got a grey screen. So if you stop and restart your screen share, it might get something from you.
Right.
Cool.
Am I displaying now then, Nathan?
You are.
Okay, so this was Ruhif when he came in. And what he did is he said that this was a perspective view. And then he put all these posts at the same height and said they were 10 meters high or something like that. So essentially, if you was a 5 feet high and these were all at this state, you would always be looking up. Always be looking up to the top of them, right? Because you would be spacing them out at 10 meters apart. 10 meters high, you're at 5 meters, and these are never changing. These aren't changing in size the further they go away. Now, what should happen is, as you're looking at them, you would look up to the first one, and then the next one, which would be further away, would look a little smaller. So to your eye, it would look lower than the one next to it. And then the one after, and the one after, and the one after. And eventually, what would happen is, eventually they would end up disappearing because they would be that small, you wouldn't be able to see them. And in comparison to the first one that you would look at, you would have to look straight up at. The furthest one would be much further away. I think I might have the video still up. So, yeah, so here we go. Here's the first one.
Be cumulative.
Here's the first one, nearest to us. Then there's the next one. It's the same height, but it's smaller away. It's smaller because perspectively, it looks smaller, even though it's the same height. So he cannot do his orthographic like this because that isn't perspective. That is not perspective at all. He needs to do the arc calculations first, which Iron Realm Media there was quick to point out. And he needs to address it and look at it like this, because this is taken into perspective. The further away it goes, the smaller it appears.
It should drop at a cumulative rate.
Yeah, cumulative. Can you see my screen yet?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing now.
I just have a quick question for you, Flat Earthers.
Is this an orthographic question or a perspective question?
It's a perspective question, actually. I got Anthony Liley right here. As you can tell, he's got a rotundness to his stature, I suppose you could say. Anyway, basically the red line is going to be the line of sight. And I'm just wondering, let's just say this is 10 meters and this is 15 meters. So you guys are saying if you move this 15-meter pole out, there's going to be a point where the 10-meter pole is actually going to obstruct this 15-meter pole?
Yeah.
Hang on. If you move the pole, which pole, which way?
Oh yeah, the
This
further
taller
away you go.
pole,
Yeah, of course you would. Yeah.
If you move it further away, at some point it's actually going to obstruct this smaller pole.
Well, it's behind it, isn't it?
Of course, it'll get smaller to your perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah, the tall pole will eventually get dwarfed by the thing in the foreground. That's called perspective.
Very good. So, Ranty, I would love for you, since you have the P900, to do this on a flat surface and have one up closer, about the same level of line of sight, and keep moving the taller object further and further away.
That doesn't work if the first object is the exact same height as the observer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to have the observer would be lower than obviously the thing you were looking at. So you couldn't look at something the same height as you. You couldn't look at you can't be looking at 600. If you're 6 feet tall filming and you're looking at something else 6 feet tall and you got something at 7 feet tall, doesn't matter how far away you push that 7 foot one, on a flat surface, it's never going to look smaller.
Yeah, but
sorry, can I just pop this? I'll just share. Sorry to interrupt,
meters.
Nummy. Sorry, I'm just going to pop what Chris Monk shared with us yesterday, which is construction of a projective scale, and it shows exactly how it works. It even has the grey area, which is known in technical terms as the circle of confusion, the area where you lose all sight of everything through perspective. And this is obviously equidistant, but spaced as you would see them down to infinity. There you go.
Okay. I just want to say that when you first started describing this, and why I said yes, is that you described the first line as being 10 meters and the second line as being 15 meters, right? So I'm assuming
the line of sight
Riley's
of
not
Anthony
10
Wiley
What's the observation
is at
height?
10 meters.
What's
As
the
you can tell,
observation
it was
height?
actually
Hold on, one at a
10
time.
meters.
So Anthony's supposed to be 10 meters tall. I mean, it's a very crude drawing, right?
Yeah, come on, Tim, put some numbers in for us.
No,
Things
let me draw a
Riley
box
the
where
Giant.
Anthony Liley is actually standing. So this is why there's actually a bit of room here. So I'll draw this box where Anthony Liley. He's on a little hill or something, a mole hill, or he's looking for like ants or
If
something.
he is standing if his observer height is like on something, that would
Okay.
make his observer height 10 meters tall.
Well,
And
exactly.
if an
what
object at level,
you might as well just
sea
say he's
level
looking
would be
across the
10
floor.
meters tall, then it would never really obscure
But that's
anything
not.
behind it.
But understand, Tim, that that's not the situation we're dealing with in the example.
Yeah, and also,
No, I'm actually asking this because when does perspective change? If you're looking dead on, it doesn't be obscured because of the perspective of a far off distance. But all of a sudden, when you aren't looking at it exactly the same level of that first object, then perspective starts to make a difference. Like
Do you know how
where's
silly
the
you're
gray line?
sounding, Tim?
Hang on,
Honestly,
hang
you
on,
are
hang on.
sounding
If you
really
stand
silly.
on top of the tallest mountain in the world, then the only thing that could really be obscured in the distance would be caused by basically fog, by a lack of air clarity.
Hang on a
Otherwise,
second.
if the air clarity would be perfect unlimitedly, then you would be able to
We're
see.
missing something. He's asking us to explain a perspective problem, but on an orthographic projection.
Yeah, it's just a model.
He's doing the exact same thing that Ruhif did.
Yeah, but like I say, this is what Chris Monk gave us to do the same. This is our combat with that. This is the same. This is essentially what Ranty was trying to do. It is an orthographic projection of a perspective view. That's what this is on screen right now. So just for comparative sake, I'll just put what Tim Osmond had up on screen again, just for comparison. Top quality work there, Tim. Stick to photographing things.
Can I just also say, Tim, I noticed...
Talking about photographing things, I'm just wondering, this whole thing, so you're telling me that what I'm showing here has something to do with perspective, making things small, and then obstructing like 2/3 of the buildings?
Yes, big things in the distance will be obstructed by potentially smaller things in the near foreground, because things at distance get smaller. That's called perspective,
But only
or
if they're,
angular
if
size
they're
change.
above the observer height.
This is a 2-foot observer height off the water. See, this is where I said about, I don't know, 70 shows ago, I think now, I said there's actually nothing you guys will be able to see that you can basically deconstruct, discombobulate, and put into a flat Earth thing, because you can't look at the sky, you can't look at the sun, moon, and stars. And then when we do these kinds of observations, well, it's perspective, well, there's miraging, well, there's this or that. So basically, you guys have deconstructed your reality into a flat reality for yourselves only.
Where's the bulge?
So it is a very subjective reality that you guys live in. So
Where's the bulge?
You guys are hopeless. I can't do anything for you. I'm sorry that people have done this to you, but I wish you the best.
Okie dokie. Thanks for that, Tim. Week has
anything to anybody.
So yeah, it doesn't matter. The denial doesn't make any difference. We are presented with a orthographic view in your world, Tim. That's what you do the calculations with. Unfortunately, in life, we have to deal with perspective. We have to deal with an angular size change at distance. And yes, unfortunately, it means that small things can block out big things in the distance.
Can I just say as well, Tim, that I need to give you good credit for the accurate representation of myself stood on the far left. He had very masculine ankles, that guy. Well done.
Yeah, I like it. This is it, man. This is the level that we're getting. People are starting to realise the magic trick isn't that good.
Riley the Giant.
Well, I think this is where unity comes important, because like when we're all on our own, we're easy pickings because we can't see all the angles that they come at us with. But when we're all united, they can't attack us. They cannot attack us because we all realise that we're on pretty much the same song sheet.
Is Adam still in?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Cool. Adam, yeah, because exactly what you said. They're not applying the angular size first.
Correct.
So it will appear smaller, and they're doing it the wrong way around. They're putting everything the same height. That's not how it looks.
I think now's a really good time to invite Adam to re-say what he said before about what they're not doing and what they should be doing, because he eloquently stated what I failed miserably at 2 shows ago. So, Adam, if you don't want to say it again.
Oh, that's pressure. Well, if you look at what Rumpus was doing, he was trying to generate... I don't know what he was ever going to do with those angles, but those angles were only relative... as a measurement from the observer's eyeball to the peaks of the mountains when viewed from the side. So they weren't relative to the picture you're trying to describe mathematically. So to do that, what you have to do is convert what you're seeing in the picture by applying the angular resolution reduction to the mountains first before you draw them. So you actually draw them at the size of the way the angular resolution reduces it. So you draw them at that reduced height on that diagram, because that diagram is to represent the view. So once you've then done that, then you can do your angles, and then your angles will represent correctly. Of course, they don't want to do that, because what they want to then do is put it on a curve. And that's when you start to see the big reduction, which they then try to pass off as all of it. But like I say, what you've got to do is apply the angular resolution and then put the curve on it for them, and you'll see an even bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And it's that blending, as Taboo Conspiracy, much more eloquent than me, puts. It's that confusion point that they're trying to mix those two things, so you accept one when two should be applied.
Yeah, his video, the Taboo Conspiracy video, perfectly illustrates the point with an example, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we need to see, because it puts it into a kind of a real world context. Explains exactly what's going on there, how they're not accounting for both. They're kind of swapping out one for the other.
Without saying it's better or different or whatever, Ranty also demonstrated the exact same thing with those wind turbines. And in some ways, from a pictorial point of view, because he shows the side elevation immediately afterwards, it really backs up that, yes, in orthographic view, all these things are the same height. But then when you get down the line, as I kept calling it, you look down the line of those wind turbines and you can see them reduce in angular size as they go into the distance. Simple as that. That's life. It even does it on the orthographic view, because he's got wind turbines in the background on that image. So they're obviously getting smaller into the background as well. You can't escape perspective.
Mr. Pimars, got any input on the perspective subject?
Well, yeah, flat earthers put out lies and try and deceive people to think the earth is flat. It's really fucked up.
Oh, good point, buddy. Good point. Brilliant. Brilliant analysis from Mars.
Flat earthers lied to me. They made me think the earth is flat.
Flat earthers are all liars.
And then
I didn't
told
believe you because they're
I told people the Earth was flat, and I looked like a huge idiot.
That was the issue. Why do you believe anybody to whatever they say? This is encouraging the human, any person to do their own research and come to your own conclusion. Why do you believe somebody, in the first place?
They packaged together some slick propaganda videos on YouTube that were pretty convincing, and I believed them.
No. When they show you how the world works as a sphere, P, they present it in an orthographic view so that they can keep the size of a 1,000-foot mountain at 1,000 foot, even when it's at a massive distance away and obviously has gotten smaller. They do that with an equidistant projection of your position viewing something rather than you actually viewing it from that position.
I don't think P my point.
Yeah, I don't. That's just fucking nonsense.
It's not. You just don't understand it. You're one of the limited capability people that Anthony was describing.
Okay.
It's not an insult, P. I don't expect most people to get it. I think most people would struggle with it.
This panel is an insult.
Yeah, we insult dumbasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the audience love it, especially the ones that get it, because they know you don't.
Yeah, I'm dumb.
It's all right. We've had 3 rage quits so far. Yesterday we had Wiggles rage quit. You can rage quit too. The obvious and observable flat nature of our world often annoys people.
I'm here to be lied to and deceived by you guys.
Well, you don't need to be. Just pay attention.
Video, honestly, mate, it's really useful and it might help you understand and stop being so.
Give me a break. Why don't you tell me about Bertrand Russell and the education system?
Why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell us about? Have you seen the Taboo Conspiracy video?
Why don't you tell me about the Lord Milner roundtable groups, guys?
That's not a flat Earth debate.
Oh, isn't it?
Flat Earth debate. It's a flat Earth debate, P.
Be sure to take your medication, man.
Yeah.
Man, you really degenerated, P. Mars.
Yo, yeah. Tell me about the Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski. Does anyone have any thoughts on that they would like to?
Not flat Earth related.
Show, P.
Oh. What? It's not a flat Earth show. The Earth isn't flat. The Earth is a sphere.
Yeah, I'm glad you've got that opinion, because if you had the same opinion as us, I wouldn't have a show. So I'm glad that you're a contrarian. However, on this show, we have demonstrated the magic trick that they pull when they calculate out any observation that does not include perspective, i.e. things getting smaller in the distance. That isn't factored in. The reason is because that's what they've used. The fact that things get smaller in the distance, if presented in an equidistant view, i.e. orthographic view, you can maintain the size of things, i.e. mountains remain at 1,000 feet, so that you can apply a curve calculation and come out with the same result as if you apply an angular size change calculation. Both models can't be correct. We can't be on a flat plane with the reality of perspective we all observe being applied and have it match the ignorance of perspective and a presupposition of curve. So, like it or lump it, understand it or don't, it's a fact of life. The world's flat, P.
Because
obviously.
If you mathematically model out perspective, it doesn't match our given observations.
We don't need to mathematically. We show it in the photographs. All we need to do is show that you don't account for it. I don't need to mathematically account for it. I can show it with a picture, any picture, every picture, and I can show that things in the distance get smaller, and you don't account for that very simple fact of life, P, in your globe calcs. So tell us we're deluded, tell us we're lying. We have got the facts on our side, mate.
You don't have facts. You have
to
lie.
Yeah, we do.
You don't have to be. You don't have to be a genius in math.
You have to lie to think the Earth is flat, right?
You don't have to be a genius in math to observe, to see.
You guys are all
lying
liars.
Am I lying when I say that they present us with an orthographic view and keep the observation at equidistant sizes? Am I lying, or do you just not understand
anything?
it, P?
You take pictures of like the ocean. Who the hell cares? You're nothing.
Okay.
So why are you here then?
Yeah, why are you here, P?
You're garbage, man.
I think, Pete,
I'll
just back Nathan up there, mate. I'd like to thank Nathan because, as you can probably tell, a lot of us have understood this maths for a while and seen the flaws in your fallacy. But I'd just like to thank Nathan.
That's not true, though.
For giving us the opportunity to really ram it down your throats and watch you struggle with it. It's quite interesting as you
And what's even more fantastic to watch is that whilst we spotted it and now isolated what the problem is, now we're watching Rumpus and Ruhif and other protagonists like Sean Hufford and GeoStreamer completely mess it all up. And the question that we're asking ourselves is not, is it right? The question ourselves is, do they know it's wrong and are they pushing it anyway?
Yeah, great. You're better than retards.
Yeah, we are.
We are,
you being the
obviously.
retard here.
Can't say the same.
We're better than
You're
you.
still a bunch of liars and you don't read.
We haven't lied about anything.
You're-
I'll say
you're
it again.
not on
Every
my
time you
level.
assert that we're lying, I will reassert that in Ball Earth mathematics, they put you equidistant from the observer point and the observation so that they can maintain the size of the object you are observing, not accounting for the angular size change, i.e. perspective. Now, no one, and I do mean no one, is going to deny that things get smaller in the distance, and yet your globe maths doesn't account for that. That's a pretty serious issue. There's no lies there, Pete. It's a fact.
You guys deny that, though.
It doesn't matter. Your globe proponents, Ruhif, Wiggles, all of these dumbasses, all of these retards have come on and confirmed that the maths doesn't account for the very obvious nature of the world in terms of things getting smaller at distance. It doesn't account for it, apparently. It doesn't need
Things
to.
don't get smaller at distance.
Doesn't need to, P, apparently. Even
They
though
don't- they don't
everybody
get
observes
smaller.
perspective.
They don't get smaller, Nathan.
I love it. Now he's denying the nature of reality. I love it. Are you drunk too? Because I absolutely assure you, P. Mars, things at distance do get smaller.
No, they don't.
This is great. We've got a baller on the panel who's literally prepared to tell 133 people that things in the distance don't get smaller. Love it.
They don't.
I keep doing
What's
it.
your,
Oh,
what's your,
God,
what's
this is
your,
brilliant.
what's your scientific method that things get smaller? Let me see. your
Okay, P. You're good for a laugh, but you really are making yourself look very, very stupid right now.
Yeah.
This is great for people watching the show. Maybe they are like first-time viewers to see how a group of people is analyzing real-time event and optical phenomena, trying to break it down and interpret
no one can understand your English.
Versus
Your English
somebody
is broken,
that is
dude.
just biased.
Your
and-
mental faculties are
What's
broken.
wrong with his English? His English is perfect. Jose, I understood every word of that. Sod you, P. Mars. You just ad homing the hell out of people because you're too retarded to understand the example we keep giving you over and over again.
You are retarded. You are a retard.
He's gone, he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah, I kicked him. This is totally
Yeah,
useless.
well, that was just completely ridiculous, and the guy's actually retarded.
Yeah. No,
Well, I just
he
wanna
needs
say-
his medication. That was
We shouldn't-
absolutely retarded.
I want to say that us guys today, we've not insulted anyone as far as I know, anyway.
Yeah, they killed a few.
And they've been swearing and calling him this, that, and the other. Everyone that's come in today has been really, really aggressive with the.
Well, no, actually, that's not right. That's
No,
not really,
it wasn't really
really
that.
well controlled, to be fair, and Nathan was the protagonist.
Well, Tim came in. He was calling you Lily from the start.
Yeah.
He gave me masculine ankles, though, so he's all right.
But that's what I mean. They were antagonistic from the minute they came in.
Use this Jose
All of
character to translate Bilu's Portuguese for you.
So
Yeah. It's no need to be
all
to go
hell,
all
Bill.
racist, P.
I think what we need to do is we need to reapply the maths that we've just realised that it's completely wrong against all of the main the key pieces of evidence, because once we make that object that we're observing shrink and then apply the curve to it, I reckon virtually all of them are going to. So what I mean is Elsa Craig, Al Keir, he did a video with Elsa Craig on it, and obviously he put I put the observer height at 1,100 feet. Not realizing at the time that that was completely and utterly wrong, because obviously the only time that the observer height, the height of the mountain is at 1,100 feet is when you stood right in front of it. When it's 38 miles away, I mean, I don't know what the maths is, and if somebody would have to do the maths for me because I'm a retard, right? But there will be a mathematical equation to just to reduce the size of that at 38 miles, and then if we apply the curve maths to it, guess how far behind the curve the whole thing should be then? That's a bit of an issue, and we should do that all, reapply the maths to all of the observations, and then laugh at the ballers, because that's probably the tipping point, in my opinion, for what will show all the nonsense that we've been passing off as this mathematical construct that everybody, the scientific world consensus, all agrees on. It's all rubbish, isn't it? Because you've not been addressing perspective.
Yeah.
What a fool!
Hey Nathan, can you present me again?
I'll put you up.
I made a small, quick drawing that, yeah, it is an orthographic view.
Orthographic.
Sorry, that word. But it is roughly to scale. Although it doesn't really matter even how big this is, but it demonstrates
panel
how a small mountain that is closer by will obscure a larger mountain or seeing perfectly the same height due to perspective. This, yeah, it's very basic demonstration. The person all the way over to the left is much more to scale, is a small person. So this is how a big rock will be obscured by a much smaller rock that is closer by. That's basically how that works.
Yeah, exactly. This is simple stuff. You know, this is it. As much as Anthony's saying, oh, right, I'm retarded, I can't do the calculation on the fly. Nobody needs to be a genius to understand one simple fact of life. Things in the distance do get smaller. The further you are away from them, the smaller they become, and they're not applying this.
They can't speak English. They can't speak English.
And to be honest, let me just add to that. I'm not required to do the maths to show what it should be like. All we've got to do as flat earthers is show that your model doesn't do what you think it does. That's all we've got to do. We don't have to provide an alternative.
Has P Mars started to snipe the panel?
Oh.
I think we just lost Anthony's mic then.
Oh, sorry. All I'm saying is that we don't need to provide anything other than the flaws in your own model. So we don't have to do anything, right? Do you understand that? It's your assertion that we live on a ball. It's your maths that we're applying, and we realise the maths is wrong.
P-Mars gets so triggered with my broken English. I would love to be in a hangout with him just to piss him off.
I'd just like to point out, I can't speak Spanish.
Yeah, you don't have to be able to speak English to understand shit anyways.
And I think you're perfectly intelligible. P. Mars is getting a little bit hard to understand. He's starting to slur a lot, isn't he? It's probably all the medication. But genuinely, that guy's worrying, man. That's like, he's descending into just prejudice now, isn't he? As
the downright psychosis.
To descend
he's getting psychotic.
Wait. You're being too kind. To descend into something means that you were once in a position of elevation.
Nah, he wasn't this bad before. So,
but this is to show, as Nathan say, it's good to leave this the sniping that's going on, the attacks they at home, because this shows how genuine some people are trying to explain things, and then some people trying to corrupt it. You know.
Yeah. So I guess we're getting close to the rounding out part of the show. I guess it's worth reminding people that we all accept that things get smaller in the distance as they get further away from you. That's what we should be basing the maths on. So you've got to do the perspective adjustment first, and then you apply the drop. And once you put that hidden value into the now smaller object in the background, you guys are totally screwed because the effect is huge. Huge.
Yep.
Yeah, I call people retards just for the benefit of the chat. The fourth. Nathan calls everyone retards. Retarded logic is what they are applying. To ignore the fact that items get smaller as you get further away is a retardation in logic.
Show Rancy's screen, Nath. This is a glorious picture in terms of the lack of bulge and the lack of drop. Mainly because of the boat.
You're on, Ranty.
Oh, okay.
Got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, I went along yesterday. The distance this time, I did 23.7 miles exactly to these buildings here. Curvature calcs say that they should be 190 feet gone because my elevation was at 31 feet. And basically these buildings here are only 167 feet tall, and they're right on the shoreline. So essentially, none of these buildings here should be seen at all. Nothing. Not a thing. Just thought I'd show that.
Plain truth, sit yourself on mute, dude. You can hear you truck.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah, so, Ranty, just show that boat in the foreground.
Okay.
And then zoom out. Oh, right. Yeah, keep going.
That's as far as I can go.
All right, okay. So basically, this boat is like quite close to us. It's not showing us any hump. Actually, how close is that boat?
I wouldn't know.
Because we can see the number on the side of it. It can't be that far away, right? Kind of. Well, but I guess the point is that if there was a bulge and a hump and there was a drop behind it, where is that drop? Where is the bulge? Why is the bulge? Bear in mind the bulge is halfway between us and the target thing that you're looking at. That makes it effectively double the size that it should be because of perspective. So that if the bulge is given a value of 50 feet higher than what it should be, really that's 100 feet because of perspective. It should be double the size, proportionate to the object in the background. That bulge in itself would drown so many things out that are actually previously seen and argued to be entirely consistent with the spheroid. No, we don't live on a testicle. We don't.
I might have one with the boat passing through, actually. Is it? What's this one? How's that? I know you can. I've just altered the contrast slightly, but can you see this is a very large boat in the foreground being pulled by a tug, and there's the buildings behind. Now, the bow of that boat isn't, the buildings in the background are 167 feet tall. That boat is not 167 feet tall, nor is this tugboat, which is 167 feet tall. The tug, but it appears higher than the buildings behind. I
think that's the good point, boys. We've not even got into that. We've had the fundamentals, and this is the next big problem with the curvature calculations in terms of perspective, isn't it? And how that boat, if we had it as the hump, how it would obscure even more. That is the big kicker, I think.
Yeah. It's probably worth a disclaimer because Issa has just said to me in chat, he said, make sure you tell them that it's an apparent size reduction. It's not an actual size reduction, just in case there's any morons out there that want to take it out of context. Sean Hufford, for example. We're not saying that things obviously shrink. We're saying that they appear to be smaller, just to clear that one up.
Just like this.
Sorry, Ranty, just before you go off that picture, can you just go back on it one more time? So I want to really drive this home. And Adam's point's absolutely valid, and I'm sure we'll cover more about where's the hump, and that, to be fair, we have covered it a bit in the past. But in this instance, absolutely, we've got a relative size change, and what we see is a boat that is obviously much smaller than the buildings, looking bigger than the buildings. Right, well, why is that? Well, because it's in the distance, right? Well, yeah, things get smaller in the distance. So surely we'll calculate for this. Oh no, it's not necessary. But yet here we are, with things that are obviously bigger, looking considerably smaller because they're further away. But no account is made for it, even though it's obvious.
Is it me, or is that tugboat actually towing that boat?
It is, yeah.
It looks like it's got a skipping rope between it, but yeah, I mean, I've kind of run out of words on this show now because it's been perfectly timed to finish with about 7 minutes to go, but these ballers are knackered because they need to change their mathematical formula. That's what I want to say. The Metabunk curve calculator, Ruhif said that it doesn't account for perspective, but it doesn't have to. Well, I agree with him. It doesn't account for perspective, and there is an argument for it doesn't need to. I do agree with that to some degree. However, if it doesn't need to, somebody has got to flip the onus on somebody because there has to be the angular size reduction to apply perspective to, right? We have to apply perspective. So if we're not going to pass the book from to Metabunk and excuse it on the basis that it doesn't have to, then the onus then gets put on the ballers to be intellectually honest, to say to flat earthers, when we put in the height of the object that we're looking at, for example, 1,000 feet, they've got to then say, actually, it's not 1,000 feet, is it? Because it's further away. You need to reduce it down. Because let's be honest, flat earthers make mistakes. We're trying to work out what we're living on. Yeah, so fine. Let's accept that we can make mistakes. But the burden falls on the ballers, if it's not Metabunk, to correct us all when we're putting the height in at 1,000 feet at 30 miles away. Because it isn't 1,000 feet at 30 miles away. It's nearer to 350 or something like that. So they should be correcting us if Metabunk are not going to disclaim that the observation height or the actual height of the object that you're looking at needs to be reduced. So it's either Metabunk for not disclaiming it or ballers for not correcting it when everybody's been doing it wrong. And it also means that all ballers on every occasion has been applying that mathematical construct completely wrong. It's just whether or not they knew that it was wrong.
Shout out to Alke in the chat.
No, shout out retracted.
But yeah, I think that they do realize that it's not applied, but they're just trying to wiggle their way out of it being required. They're basically claiming that's not required, but they are admitting that it's not in there.
Oh, it absolutely is required. It's a fact of life.
Absolutely
Perspective is a thing in every image, every single image.
LK says no, it's not required.
Ah.
I wonder when he's coming to Blackpool again. Maybe he should do some barrow footage.
Alk says what's not required?
He thinks it's not necessary to acquire any sort of measurement in terms of an angular size change. So, Alk, do things in the distance get smaller?
Yeah, he's obviously one of those that denies it, right? So, all right, let's accept Al's position for the sake of Al. That means that every time you do an observation, Al, if you put in the actual height of the thing you're looking at, so in your case, Eliza Gray or whatever it was at 1,100 feet, then you must put your distance to 0, because the only time that observation shows that mountain to be 1,100 feet is when it's right in front of your nose. All other times it's smaller.
The way I'd put it is, that picture, whatever it is, it's collecting data, and whenever you collect data, whether it's with instruments or whatever, you always have to compensate for the way you're collecting the data corrupts it. And it's this application of angular perspective, which is the application of correcting the corruption of the data as you gather it from a optical point of view. And it's that they've ignored.
Well, I hope Globebusters comes back on this weekend, and I hope Bob or Jaron are watching, and I hope someone smashes this home in front of an audience of however many they get, because basically the maths on that Metabunk calculator is only half the story. It's the other half that's missing that destroys their ball fantasy. So for everybody out there that does Hangouts or that does videos, let's ram this one home for a couple of weeks whilst the message gets across, because if we lose the message in this little circle of the internet, then we're going to lose the effectiveness of the argument. It's a huge argument, and these ballers are lying by misrepresenting the world we live in. We don't live in an orthographic world. We live in a perspective world.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, you know what to do. But if you like the show, consider sharing it with a friend and maybe subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!